evening if you are in Europe, good afternoon if you are in America, and whatever time it is in other places. This is the AltDev Student Summit, and today we are pleased to present Alex Crouzen, who's going to talk about a day in the life of a tools programmer or buildmaster. If you look underneath the video that you're watching just now, you'll see an Ask a Questions link, which will take you to where you can submit for the Q&A. We'll go through those at the end. And feel free to join in the discussion. We're using the hashtag #AltDevConf, which you can see in the top corner of the slide there. Without further interruption, I'll turn it over to Alex to go for it.
Thank you very much, Luke. So yes, my name is Alex Crouzen, and I'm a tools programmer and buildmaster at Supermassive Games here in Guildford. And I'd like to tell you about a day in the life of me. So yeah, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to guide you through a made-up day that basically highlights some of the things I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to go into too much depth of them because I don't have too much time for that. And then I think there's also some time for a Q&A afterwards. So if you've got any questions, please enter them now or during the lecture. So a bit about myself. I'm actually Dutch. Well, I moved to the UK about 10 years ago. I'm 42. Happily married, and I live and work in Guildford at the moment, which is quite a nice town to live in for the games industry. I don't have a degree, so I dropped out fairly early on, but I did attend college, and I did do courses at college and afterwards that have helped me in my career. My career from about 5 years ago, up until about 5 years ago, was in normal IT, so as a programmer, a sysadmin, had a short stint as manager as well. But after that, I found a role in the games industry, which I'd always wanted, as a gameplay programmer. Then progressed on to server developer, and currently I am a tools developer and buildmaster. So very quickly, what does a tools programmer or a buildmaster do? Basically, a tools programmer makes tools, mostly for the asset pipeline, which I will talk about a bit more later for the game studio. And buildmaster is somebody who owns, manages, and also kind of sometimes creates what's called the build pipeline and auto builders, which I will talk about a little bit later as well. So, but without further ado, we go to the first section, morning. Yes, nice tea or coffee, and then on to doing our Scrum and reading the emails. Now, I don't know if you know what Scrum actually means, but Scrum is a methodology to plan and to kind of measure progress and velocity of processes. So we have a little get-together in the morning and basically talk about what we've done, what we're going to do, how quickly we're doing it. So it's an agile thing, so you might want to Google it if you want to know a bit more about it. Not all studios do it, but we do. And then, of course, I read my emails. Now, for me, emails are quite important. I've set up quite a lot of reporting from all the tools and all the build process that I do through email, so I can get a good overview if everything's still working throughout the day. If things break, I get emails. If things go right, I get emails as well, which is very important. So I still know how things are actually progressing. So yeah, that's my morning. 11sis, of course, here in England we all have 11sis. So after our pancakes, we have pre-production and planning. Now, pre-production I'm mentioning here because one of the interesting things about being a tools programmer is that you are actually involved in quite a lot of the aspects of the game, and from quite early on in games. So sometimes even in design, but definitely at pre-production, you start getting requests for tools to be built, for estimates about how long tools are going to be taking time to build. And then from production right through to release, actually involved with everything that throughout the game process, as it were. And because I'm a build master as well, I get that even through the last bits of release as well. When the final things have to be built, final packages or disk images. Most tools development actually gets done before production starts of a game, because all the tools ideally are in place when the actual content creation of a game starts. So yes, pre-production is quite important for a tools programmer. The other interesting thing about being a tools programmer and a build master next to that is that I get involved in all the games across the studio. So we're a fairly large studio, so we do have multiple games or game developments going at the same time, and I get involved in quite a lot of those. So that's very very interesting from my point of view. A very challenging and exciting way of doing development. Planning I'm highlighting here as well, because of course we do planning. We try to get everything planned so that we get all the tools finished before production starts. Doesn't always work that way, of course, but we have, especially at the start of development, have a lot of planning sessions. So which in itself can be quite interesting as well, but sometimes seem a bit like a chore. So when we've done all that, we go on to lunch. And yes, most important meal of the day, some people say, but I like lunch as well. So I thought I'd highlight the two most important bits of my talk, of course, the tools and the build. Now, as I said, tools are mostly used in asset creation and the asset pipeline, which is basically kind of massaging existing content or newly created content, which gets created in bigger tools that we don't really create, like Maya or sound editing programs or 3D Studio Max. And then the tools mostly get used to either combine those assets or to massage them into formats that the game engine that you use actually understands. So that's what we call the asset pipeline. Also in the maintenance of them, so putting them in the right place, giving them the right names, and all kinds of that kind of things. So I thought I'd give you a list of the kind of tools that I've actually built or helped build in the last few months, and the biggest one for me at the moment is a tool that we use to localize speech and text, which we've created from scratch so that we can support all kinds of languages, support the sound engine that we use, support the audio formats that we get, all that kind of stuff, and then being able to have them translated and have the text translated as well. Exporters. Now, if there's one thing that you make a lot of, that's exporters. Just translating from one format to another format is a very big thing. Therefore, also importers, of course, as well. Just importing into existing tools or exporting from existing tools. That's quite a large part of the tools programmer's work. The thing I've got here as well is I've worked on a so-called state machine editor, which is kind of a big word for just a gameplay editor. It defines what the gameplay looks like, how the gameplay works, what different objects in the game do, so that kind of thing. I've also created a bit more down-to-earth things like database backends to store certain data that we have uniquely in our game or games, and interface with existing databases or file formats to be read from other applications. I've also written server game code, which is a previous game I worked on. So not directly tools programming, but it does actually feel quite toolsy because you have to write scripts and you have to write database access and things like that. So it's quite nice to do things like that at some point as well, and I get the opportunity to, which is nice. Builds, and I mentioned the build pipeline. Build pipeline is slightly different from the asset pipeline in that build pipeline mostly results in a ready-made package or disk image of some sort that then is used to run the game, or sometimes it results in an executable of the game code or a combined executable and data. So, but it's mostly used to kind of combine the different aspects of the game into into runnable code. One of we've got a couple type of builds. One of them is, for example, the data build, which kind of massages all the data, but it's also used as a sanity check. It continuously builds the data and looks if everything is right. It might run on people's machines, but it doesn't mean that it runs on everybody's machine. So therefore, a sanity check. We also do continuous integration, which is the same but for code, which means that every time something new gets checked into the source control, it will build the code, and it will try to compile the code, and sometimes even run the code and do testing on it. So, and as I said, most of the time those builds result in packages or disk images or other executables. So that's kind of the lowdown on what tools I make and what builds I manage. So, and then later on the day, dinner. Oh, I don't like oysters myself. It was a very nice picture, so I thought I'd go with that. And then two aspects that are deeper down in the arsenal of a tools programmer and Buildmaster are the languages and the programming languages and source control. Source control is very important. I'll talk about that in a bit. But I've realized that in the last 2 years, actually, I've started gravitating for myself to two languages that I'm using a lot at the moment. And the first one for that is the tools one. I use C# with WPF, the Windows Presentation Foundation, which or framework, which is especially if you run Windows applications, is ideal to make GUI tools, because it's just so easy to make fairly complex graphical tools and even whole level editors. I've not gone that far yet, but it's a great tool and a great programming language, and you can try it for free. It's out there. The Express version of Visual Studio is there too for you to try it. The other language I'm using a lot at the moment is Python. Python has many users, and from command line tools that I have to write, so the exporters, the importers, down to writing server code, web servers, web pages, etc. You name it, Python can do it. I wouldn't recommend it for GUI tools that much, because it's a bit clunky sometimes on that, but for anything else, Python works miracles for me. So I'm going to mention a third language as well, which is SQL. It's just very important to have a good understanding of that for me, because I work with so many databases and interface with so many different structured data sets, that having SQL is a very good thing for me to know about. And then source control. Source control is my bread and butter. It's actually even more important than the languages I know. Because everything that I do links into source control. The tools put things into source control, get things out of source control, manage things that come out of source control. Everything links in with it. We use Perforce at work, which is kind of the de facto source control software package for games development. And it's of course also used by the build system. The build systems link directly into source control, get all their information out of source control, what has been added, who has added it, so that they can see who breaks things. All that kind of stuff is in source control. So if there is if you're interested in going the direction of build mastery or tools programming, learn about source control, not just about Perforce, as I just said, but about the other ones as well, like Git, like Mercurial, Subversion, maybe even the old CVS. It's all out there. It's a very important aspect. So, and then when we've had all that, we get to the end of the day, and we have both the most stressing and the most relaxing bit of game development, because I'm involved with everything from start to finish of the game. I'm also involved with rollout, and especially as a build master, you get used at the end of the game development to fix everything that's not going very well. A package might not be built with the right parameters, ISO, or disk images might not be set up with the right content, might get files from the wrong direction, wrong path. So at the end of the day, at the end of the game development, it's a fairly stressful period. So you will get late nights, sometimes even weekends. So don't be scared by that, by the way, but it does happen. Having said that, the next topic is relaxing, and I have to say that, and this is where I'm going to big up the company I work for a little bit, Supermassive Games. We have a very good atmosphere. We try not to work too long, to work many evenings and many weekends. So yes, there's a very good atmosphere, and I think that's something to be said for companies, that they should have a good atmosphere outside of work as well, and try to take care of their employees, which is very important, because at the end of the day, you shouldn't take time to relax, and even if you work flat out throughout the day and for the whole week, just take time to relax and enjoy what you're doing, because in the end, you're still helping creating games. You might not be doing the actual game development, although it's an essential part of the game development. Without tools, without the build system, games probably would not be made, or if they were, would be made a lot less quick or a lot slower as they are right now. So yes, relax. So, and that's it. That's a day in my life. Not a typical day, because, as I said, I've made it up, and I've added everything that I could think of, and might be a bit food oriented, but hey, that's what I enjoy as well. So so thank you very much, and yeah, thank you for listening. I'd like to thank my employers, of course, for making this possible. They've supported me in doing this, and supported me in my work as well, and they're quite a good company to work for. I'd like to thank Luke and Heather for doing this conference. They're doing a stellar job, and I'm really enjoying doing this at the moment. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've gotten something out of this, that I've shed some light on some of the subjects that might be the less glorious side of game development, but it's still very interesting. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, Snake Nuts is my alias there, and yes, I'm also growing a mustache for Movember, so I thought I'd just put my little Movember link at the bottom there to let you see what I look like with a mustache. And for people who don't know what it is, basically it's to make people aware of men's health charities. So, but enough about that. So that's it. I think it might be time for some questions.
Oh, I think it might be time for some questions. Am I back on?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm always a little bit conscious when I unmute myself that it's not worked right. Okay, so we have a question in from John S. asking, how would you suggest that as an artist you start learning how to make the tools?
As an artist, start making tools? Well, for one, I think, of course, learn to program if you don't already. Lots of the artists I know do have a little bit of knowledge about programming, because they work with packages like Maya or 3D Studio Max, which have very complicated interfaces. So, yeah, learn the two languages that I've just mentioned. Learn C#, learn Python, maybe some other languages as well, and then maybe try to write a tool that you need to use yourself. So if you've got a repetitive job that you have to do over and over again, say you have to save a file to certain locations 2 or 3 times, then write a little tool for that. And then maybe try to find out if there's anybody like colleagues or maybe friends or something who have something that they say, oh, I need to do this every time. Write a little tool for that, and in the end, you still have to learn program things, but I think learning a programming language like C# with Visual Studio is actually very easy, and you can make very good-looking tools and good working tools fairly quickly with that. So and Python is actually, if you use a package like Maya, Python is part of the program. You can directly use Python within Maya, and I think there's books out there as well to that, or at least on the internet, on Google, you should be able to find a lot of information about how to use Python within Maya. So I think, from my perspective, those 2 approaches, so learn to program C#, learn to program Python, and have a look around if there's any problem that needs solving for yourself and maybe for friends or colleagues.
I think that's pretty great advice. Jose in Costa Rica would like to know if you, and this is going to be a contentious one, I warn you in advance, if you had to choose source control tool, which one would it be?
Oh, yes.
Putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, holy wars have been fought over this. I am currently actually, if I had to choose a source control, the main reason we use Perforce is that it deals very well with big files and large collections of files. So in games development, of course, you've got large assets, music, sound, large graphics, textures, animations, everything like that. Perforce is quite good with that, and it's quite stable. And having said that, it might not always be the most easy, the easiest tool to use. I've actually started using Git myself. We don't use this at Supermassive, but and to be honest, it's just as complex. It's just as confusing. So, but it's a lot more transparent and has a lot more features for things like collaborative working on source files. I personally, for game development, I'd still look at Perforce first, because also currently you can get pretty good free licenses for it to try it out, and not just try it out, but actually use it for indie licenses. But if you really want to go completely free or completely open, then Git would be my second choice. So those are the 2 that I'd recommend looking at the moment. So I hope I've not kicked too many people in the shins by that, but there you go. That's my 2 bits.
No, I think that's fair enough. Besides, they're not the guys at the front of the room at the moment. You are, so you get to have it.
Indeed.
Chris in New Jersey has asked, is there a benefit to learning languages like MEL for Maya? Or do you find that tools built directly into the bigger software packages are beneficial? Because, I mean, you talked about Python inside these things earlier. Yeah. I guess it sounds like there's specific things, so...
There's a bit... I don't completely understand it, but the thing I can tell about MEL or MEL is... Yeah, I've not really dealt with MEL myself as such. We've kind of skipped that and do most of the work in Maya in Python. The second bit, what was it again? Sorry, could you repeat?
I'll be able to once they bring it back up. Hang on. Do you find that tools built directly into the bigger software packages are beneficial?
Okay. Yes, I think I understand. Well, for this, tools built into the software packages. They can be and they can't be. It's a bit of a contentious area, in that we have found that if you load too much functionality into the bigger software packages, so you basically write a completely custom tool set into one of the bigger packages, then yes, it's beneficial in that it knows everything about the package and it can do everything that the package would do. But you also get to a point where you start stretching and pushing things a bit too far. And with that, I mean that you kind of start creating a tool that's bigger than the sum of its parts and starts falling over quite a lot. So with Python and MEL, you can write complete level editors inside Maya, but it's not always the best thing to do, because it's sometimes easier or better if you've got full control over the tool that you build. If you build it in Maya, you don't always have full control. You have you're still constrained by Maya's limits. So using MEL and Python inside Maya is a good thing for smaller tools, in my opinion, but it can be used to write bigger tools inside those apps. So yeah, it's definitely possible, but I would advise against it myself. Probably better to write a large tool outside Maya if you really need something really substantial. So, any more?
Yeah, we've got time just for one more. So I'm going to slip one in,
Okay.
which is, I don't know, this might be a dumb question, but we were talking about sanity checks earlier.
Yes.
And I've heard the way that people have sort of been doing sanity checking on making sure that what's being rendered is correct.
Yes.
Could you speak a little bit on that and how that works from a tools point of view? Because I've always tried to work out in my head how that happens.
That's a good question, and I haven't really dealt with it actively as such myself, but things rendering correctly, it's a very difficult one, because very small changes can result in very big differences in what things look like. So I don't know of any automated way of actually checking what things look like, short of going to a specific point and comparing it to a screenshot, which does happen sometimes, but I think that way madness lies. What you do have is sanity checking, and we're talking about more things like smoke tests and soak testing, which is a whole different kettle of fish, which I haven't really talked about at this point. Basically, one of the things that you can do, which happens sometimes, is that you have a game played automatically by an automated bot, as it were, that plays through the game and looks if everything is still stable, that it doesn't crash, that that there's no holes in the floor, that there's no light leaking through and stuff like that. It can detect that automatically. So that's one approach that is done to kind of do automated sanity checking. Most of the time, the sanity checking that we do is just, does the game understand it? Does it not crash? And does the compiler not crash? Then we're fine. But that kind of render, look, if it renders correctly, that's still done by Q&A most of the time, and done visually by people actually looking at it. So I think it's time to wrap up.
It is. Thank you very much, Alex. That's been most informative. I've got something that I'm supposed to say at the end, and I've lost it completely. So yeah, so we're going to be starting up the next session. I think the Jeff Ward session is just about to kick off. Mitu Kandeka's session will be a couple of minutes down the line while I set up for it. So please keep an eye on Twitter, wait for the watch live, and then hit the link. Thank you again, Alex. That's been a great session, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Thank you for having me.